Words in the news. What is a tariff? How about a boycott? Today I am teaching you trade war vocabulary. Hello, my name is Josh, and today I am helping you expand your vocabulary. We're going to take a look at international trade words, words that are super important, especially these days with what is happening around the world. Also, after watching my video, you will be able to understand the news much better. After watching the video, don't forget to take the final quiz because you will really see if you master the new vocabulary. Let's start with two easy words, import and export. To import something means to bring goods into a country. For example, Canada imports a lot of coffee. So we import coffee from South America, we import coffee from Africa. How about you? What does your country import? Think about it and try to answer the question. Now, the opposite is export. It means to send goods out of a country. For example, Brazil exports coffee to Europe. So the coffee is moving from Brazil and goes to Europe. So it goes out of Brazil. It is exported from Brazil. How about you? What does your country export? My country exports a lot of maple syrup. You may be familiar with this word, customs. The government office that controls imports and exports and that collects import taxes. For example, a customs officer searched the bag for illegal items. Now ask yourself, where can you see customs officers? You can see them at the airport, at the port, and also at the border between two countries. Talking about taxes, you should know this word, duty. You've seen this before. A duty is an import tax, customs duty. Someone could say, the customs officer told me I had to pay duty on the laptop I bought in Japan. Now, what do people buy at a duty-free store? Think about it. What can you buy there at the airport? Many people buy perfume, alcohol, or many kinds of luxury goods. If you import something without telling customs, you are doing what? You are smuggling. To smuggle is a verb. To secretly take things across a border because it is illegal or to avoid duty. Here's an example. He tried to smuggle expensive watches through customs without declaring them. You have to declare what you are bringing into a country, otherwise you are smuggling. And now, a word we hear a lot on the news, tariff. I know you want to know about this one. A tariff is a type of duty, and a tariff is set to protect domestic industries. For example, the US government imposed a tariff on Chinese goods. Who pays the tariff and where does the money go? Those are two important questions. Who pays the tariff? It's actually the US importers. But the US importers do not want to pay the tariff, so usually the US consumers are going to see a bump in the price of the item that they have ordered. So they will end up paying for the tariff. And also these days, many consumers are ordering on AliExpress, so you are basically the importer when you order on those sites. Now, where does the money go? It goes to the US government. This is all about our example. The US government imposed a tariff, so the US government is making that money. They are taking the money and they are keeping it. None of the money goes to China. The government can also set limits on imports and exports. That is called a quota. A quota is a limit on the amount of product that can be imported or exported. Here's a picture to help you understand. The country set a quota on car imports to protect local automakers. Instead of limiting the amount, the government can also impose a ban. A ban is a complete stop or prohibition of something, and usually it's only on one product. So the ban is valid only for one product. For example, Kenya has put a ban on ivory exports. What do you call a trade ban with a specific country? We call that an embargo. That is a government order to stop all trade with one country. For example, the US placed an embargo on Cuba in the 1960s, and it's still valid today. There is no trade between the US and Cuba, even though they are neighboring countries. A ban or an embargo are two examples of sanctions. A sanction is a government action to limit or stop trade to punish a country. The UN placed sanctions on Russia after the invasion of Ukraine. What are tariffs, quotas, bans, embargoes, and sanctions? Altogether, we call them trade barriers. A trade barrier is any rule or policy that restricts or limits trade. So a trade barrier is basically a wall, but it's an invisible wall that stops or that limits trade. Trade barriers are used to protect local industries. If a government uses many trade barriers, it is called what? It is called protectionism. And that is an economic policy of restricting imports. So protectionism is a little bit like being a knight who is restricting who can enter the castle. The government adopted protectionist policies to support local farmers. If a country uses many trade barriers, what could other countries do? Other countries could retaliate, retaliation, a response to a trade restriction. If a country decides to add a new tariff, maybe the other country is going to add a counter tariff. So the other country is going to retaliate. For example, China imposed tariffs in retaliation for US trade barriers. Here's an effective way to retaliate. Boycott. To boycott can be a verb, or a boycott can be a noun. That is when people or countries refuse to buy as a protest. In the picture, people are protesting plastic, so they are refusing to buy anything that comes in a plastic bottle. Many people boycotted the company after the scandal. The students organized a boycott of the school cafeteria. Instead of being protectionist, some countries want to remove trade barriers. We call that a trade agreement, a formal deal between countries to control trade barriers. The countries created a trade agreement to boost exports. Japan signed a free trade agreement with the EU. You can also have a free trade agreement that removes all trade barriers. It's quiz time, 10 questions. A strict was announced on the import of endangered animal products. Quota, retaliation, ban, or sanction. A strict ban was announced on the import of animal products. Question 2. The government introduced a that only allows 500 tons of rice to be imported each year. A tariff, a quota, an export, or a duty. The government introduced a quota that limits the amount of rice that can be imported. Question 3. The government placed a high on foreign electronics to make local products more competitive. Boycott, embargo, tariff, or quota. The government placed a high tariff on foreign electronics. Question 4. Officials inspected the cargo for illegal items before allowing it into the country. Duty, smuggling, sanctions, or customs. Customs officials inspected the cargo. Question 5. In response to the environmental scandal, activists called for a global of the company's products. Duty, trade barrier, boycott, or export. Activists called for a global boycott of the company's products. Question 6. Travelers must pay an import on certain goods they bring back from overseas. Duty, retaliation, embargo, or boycott. Travelers must pay an import duty on certain goods. Question 7. What is the name of the tax that causes the price of imported goods to increase? Embargo, import, tariff, or sanction? The name of the tax is a tariff. Question 8. Is being negotiated to remove trade barriers and improve business between the two nations. Retaliation, trade agreement, sanction, or boycott. A trade agreement is being negotiated. Question 9. Helping domestic industries by limited foreign competition is called protectionism, retaliation, import, or smuggling. The answer is protectionism. Question 10. Any rule, tax, or restriction that makes it harder for goods to move between countries. Export, sanction, customs, trade barrier. The answer is trade barrier. All trade barriers make it harder for goods to move between two countries. I hope you've learned something new today. If you want to practice more, go to my website. You can find extra activities on every single one of my videos. See you next time. Bye-bye.